Your alternative talk radio contact. The Planet. KGRAradio.com.
With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
Welcome to another edition of Into the Fray. First, thanks for being here. If you enjoy ITF, please rate and review it in Apple Podcasts. This helps others find it, which turns into more people with encounters for me to interview. If you'd like more content than the free weekly edition, go to intothefrayradio.com and click Become an Insider. It's only $4.99 a month or $54 for an entire year. And if you have an encounter you'd like to share, email me at shannon@intothefrayradio.com. If you've got shorter stories, feel free to call the hotline, 877-317-9111. You can call that anytime, toll free. My first book, Beyond the Fray Bigfoot, co-authored with best-selling author G. Michael Hoff, is available on Amazon in both paperback and Kindle editions. Once you're finished, please take a moment to leave a rating and review. For signed and personalized copies, send $19.99 via PayPal, free shipping within the U.S. only, to beyondthefrayllc@gmail.com. Besides Beyond the Fray Bigfoot, we now have Beyond the Fray PARAMALGAMATION up for pre-order on Amazon right now. As hinted in the title, of course, it is paranormal stories. All kinds of them. It is an amalgamation. They are extremely difficult to classify in any one category of the paranormal. What is wonderful about this book, it is some of my favorites from the show, plus many will be included that you will have not heard on the show. And if you have any encounters that you'd like in an upcoming volume of Beyond the Fray, shoot me an email, shannon@intothefrayradio.com, or you can even just open your smartphone, talk into any kind of recording app, and email me that file. Be as detailed as you can in your story, of course. Any questions? Again, just email me, shannon@intothefrayradio.com. And last but not least, Jeff and I have created Beyond the Fray Publishing. So, if you've got a book you'd like us to publish for you, send us an email at info@beyondthefraypublishing.com. For general questions and information on us, visit our website, beyondthefraypublishing.com. Books we consider will need to be in the genres cryptid, paranormal, or true crime, both fiction and nonfiction. Thanks again, and that will do it for now. So, on to the show. No, Congratulations on that. No, what I kind of wanted to do was, instead of, because sometimes I'll go, so thank you for sending me the email, and the subject was, but I don't want to do that. What I'm going to do is, and I'm going to set this up for everybody. Robert sent me an email, and I will save the subject line for you guys to find out here in a few minutes when we get to that part. But I will say that part of the email says that, and this is just a week ago, everybody, well, a week from when he sent the email, so not too long ago.
Yeah, it was around the 20th of March.
It was not long ago. You had a bizarre and utterly disturbing experience in your own home. That's all that I wanted to set up as far as the story goes, and you can now take it wherever you like to start it.
Okay, and I do have some other stuff that has happened if we get
absolutely
further down that rabbit hole. I've been in the same place for 16 years, and some weird stuff has happened, but nothing quite as shocking as that. So just go right ahead and start off, I guess.
Absolutely.
Okay. I am no stranger to sleep paralysis. I've had it a couple of times. Well, probably more like 4 or 5 times throughout my 37 years of existing on this spinning blue globe. And I've always, at least once you have it once or twice, you kind of, okay, this is what's happening to me. Yes, it's a little freaky, but I'll get through it. And the hallucinations or whatever they are associated with that phenomenon, as spooky as they are, you tend to get used to them. But when something else that's similar happens, but different enough to scare the hell out of you happens, it makes you take notice that maybe this wasn't just sleep paralysis. Maybe I did see something extra spooky that night.
Right.
As far as going into the story, I live alone. And I was asleep, and this happened around, I'd say about 3:40 a.m. my time, and I'm located in central Iowa here. And I don't know why I woke up. I just jerked awake. It wasn't a noise. It wasn't like, some people have sleep apnea and you catch yourself gasping and you wake up. It wasn't anything like that. But I jolted awake, and it was unusual because I was on my back. I am not a back sleeper at all. I sleep on my stomach or my sides. I wake up, and looking down at me, 8 to 12 inches away from my face, maybe as close to 6, I'm terrible at distance, is the only thing I could describe it as, and that's why in my email I have trouble describing it, was what some people like Terrence McKenna called during his little adventures with dimethyltryptamine, DMT, is a machine elf, and a rather nasty, angry-looking one at that. And I don't use that language to say it's exactly like what he described. It is. I call it a machine elf because I don't know what else to call it. Because the way I can describe it is if you took parts of the creature from the Black Lagoon, a goblin-looking thing, and maybe even a touch of what people describe as like the what is it? Was it Hopkinsville alien? Mm-hmm. The goblins, and you kind of mash them all together, give it a skin tone that looks somewhat like brushed aluminum, and some gnarly snaggle teeth, and that's needle teeth, and that's what was looking down at me, kind of snarling and breathing raspily in my face. This went on for about, it's hard to tell when you're jolted awake and terrified. I would say it felt like forever, but it was probably 10 seconds at first. And then I noticed that, unlike with sleep paralysis, which whenever I've had it before, I can't move. I can move my eyes. I can't move my head or anything like that. I look over on the nightstand, and having been a victim of random violence in the past, I carry a concealed weapon, mm-hmm. and I always set it on the nightstand at night. And the terror wore off, and I just got kind of equally angry. The fight or flight kicked off, and okay, I can't get up and run away. So if this thing is real, maybe I have to fight. So I look over at my pistol sitting there. I'm surprised I can even move my head, tilt it, and it took extraordinary force. The next day, I was actually sore from fighting against the inability to move. My muscles were so tensed up. I slowly torque my head to the left to look at the thing, and I try to reach out my left arm towards it, which, is probably stupid, because if this thing gets in your house without opening any doors, a gun is probably worthless. But right. When you're jolted awake, you're not thinking straight. Your caveman brain is going more than anything, and the caveman brain says hit nasty thing with the first thing you can get it with, and that was that. So I'm slowly twisting my arm out towards it, and I do mean slowly, at a snail's pace. I'm winning against whatever paralysis I'm fighting, and it notices that I'm doing it. It looks over at the pistol laying on the table. It looks back at me, looks back at the pistol, looks back at me, kind of just lets out this grunty snort, really. And then I blacked out. And I came to about 2 minutes later, according to my alarm clock sitting on the nightstand. And I spent the rest of the night sitting downstairs with the television on, not wanting to go back to bed.
Gee, I couldn't imagine why. I mean, come on, Robert.
I mean, I've been spooked. I've been spooked awake by things before in my house, but never to the point where, I don't want to go back to bed. It's not that I can't go to bed. I don't want to go back to bed. So yeah, that was my experience.
After you blacked out and then you woke back up, there was no sign of this thing anywhere.
No. I have an extra lock on my bedroom door, like an outdoor type lock, because years ago we had a home invasion here. And someone kicked in the back door, and I figured the more locks and doors you can put between the point of entry and where you're sleeping, the more time you have to get up and react, call the cops, defend yourself, whatever. So that was locked. All the doors were locked. Nothing was moved. Nothing. I just remember waking up and especially the next day, I felt a kink in my neck and in my arm where I had been struggling against this, because it was like when you're struggling with sleep paralysis, you don't really feel your muscles move, you just can't move them. You don't feel them. But I could feel my muscles tensing up and fighting against whatever it was.
If you weren't sore the next day, would you have just thought it was a dream? Because then there would be no evidence really of it.
I probably would have thought this is just the weirdest form of sleep paralysis I've ever had. Because when I've had sleep paralysis, I've had the typical old hag, in the corner of the room sort of thing show up once or twice. And that scares you at first. But then when you read up about it, it's not a hat man. It's not the old hag. It's something different staring back at you and in your face. And I also sleep with a light on. So, I'm sorry, my phone's trying to ring here.
No worries.
Yeah, and it's someone I don't know. Okay. But it was something just far enough off to make me go, what the hell was this?
Right. And it was and the other part that I found really creepy was the fact that once you realize, okay, well, I can move and I'm going to try to reach for my gun, no matter how slowly you were moving, it was interacting with you and noticing that you were doing that, which is also very creepy. And for something to be just, like you said, out of a sleep paralysis thing, that's kind of getting out of the realm of just being able to toss it into it's sleep paralysis, no big deal.
Exactly. And the fact that you just black back out and then wake up a couple minutes later, that's not usually how it works. You eventually just kind of, at least for me, I've always just drifted out of it eventually.
I mean, is your thinking then, and this is total conjecture, of course, because we don't really know what the hell that thing was.
No.
Or is. Hopefully it doesn't come back. But, the thinking was he's looking at you trying to do something and seemingly maybe knowing what you were going for. Maybe he didn't know it was a gun, but maybe he just knew, he's going to try to whack me with that or whatever. Are you thinking that it made you black out? It was because of that thing? Like he let out a huff like he was pissed or frustrated, so... Yeah.
I honestly don't know. Your adrenaline's going so much and everything. I don't know if I just passed out from the combination of adrenaline and fighting against this paralysis that I was experiencing. But it huffed at me and I blacked out. I don't think what it did necessarily make. I don't know. Essentially, it's all conjecture. Whatever it. But if something has the ability, if this isn't sleep paralysis, and I will leave that up to debate. It sure doesn't feel like it to me. But if it isn't sleep paralysis, whatever could get through all that, who knows what it can do.
Exactly. So something else I was wondering. You do say that it was leaning over you in the email, so it was not small enough to be like sitting on your chest or something like you do. Like in the old hay. So it was tall enough that it was standing over you.
Yeah, I would put it at around 5 to 5.5 feet.
Ugh, God.
Okay, because that's about how high you would have to be to lean over me in my bed from where I was.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
How lovely.
Yeah.
You already brought up the sharp teeth, and something else you mentioned in your email that I just thought was worth noting was that you said it was very gangly, skinny little thing, and then it had a really long neck. Yeah,
it was long necked, and by gangly I mean it was very thin, but it also was very sinewy. I mean you can see it had muscles. It wasn't just like spaghetti armed or anything like that. It had some definition under its skin. And what I thought was different about the skin too, it had kind of looked as, like I said, had a brushed aluminum sheen to its skin, but it also had where the highlights were, you could see like little iridescent nature to the skin. That little rainbow effect you see sometimes on oil on water or something like that. Yeah, it had just a little bit of iridescent shimmer to it.
It's exactly what, especially now talking to you about it, it's exactly what I would imagine out of one of my favorite book series is by Terry Goodkind. And he has these creatures in his books called gars, and they can fly and they have wings and stuff. But just the head and the teeth and the way that the skin looks and everything reminds me of that very much. Was there any hair to it at all?
I didn't see any hair. No, it was completely bald. At first, when I sat down, I thought, I thought, is this a gray? Because, gray skin, not terribly tall, not terribly short, gangly, that's what you hear about, but it had ears. And it had ears that's why I called it kind of a machine elf. It had the aluminum looking skin and whatnot, and the ears were tucked tightly, but it was very elf-like kind of ears tucked tightly against its head. The eyes were large and black, like you would think of with a gray, but it had the ears and stuff. So it doesn't really fit the gray paradigm as we know it. So that's why at first I thought, did I just have some weird, close encounter with something else? But I don't think that's what it was.
And no whites to the eyes, right? Completely black.
Completely black, and not your typical picture of a gray-shaped eyes. They were large and black, but kind of like instead of being the large almond shaped, it was more pronounced where it tapered off and kind of curled up at the sides. Kind of almost more like the only thing I can think of is if you took the outline of the Eye of Horus kind of thing, where it kind of curls up along the sides, and then fill it in all black. Yeah, that's what I experienced. So,
I mean, I know our brains can do some pretty amazing and random things, but there are a couple of red flags to make it to where it just doesn't seem like you were having a classic sleep paralysis incident, especially since you've had them before, so it's a little easier for you to go, yeah, this time was very different.
Yeah, and that's why I took a few days to kind of think about it, and I'm like, I don't think I'm crazy, but I want to reach out to somebody who probably gets a ton of emails and see if they've had anything maybe that anyone else has chimed in with something similar. So that's when I found you.
I mean, did you ever hear John Paul Capice's experience he had when he, when he was a kid? And he also basically, I'm pretty sure he just labeled that as some kind of a demon, backslash goblin, backslash whatever, because who the hell really knows what these things are. But his is different physically in a lot of ways, a lot shorter. The ears are sticking out. They were still like elvish shaped, but they were sticking out, and he had like a football shaped head and more like alligator skin almost, like reptile skin. Okay. But, this is something that basically disappeared after he threw like a stuffed animal kind of thing at it. And then he, put his head under his covers. And then I can't remember now if he actually looked again and it was gone, or he just was terrified and stayed under the covers. Either would make sense. With me, I'd probably stay under the covers like a big sissy. But these things do tend to show up just randomly. And a lot of times it's just a one-off thing. Like he only saw that damn thing the one time. And I know this only happened to you last month on the 20th, so not that long ago. This is the second for everybody taking note of April. But, I mean, what did that do to you after, though? I mean, are you still, like, thinking about that every single night when you go to bed? Like, please do not let me see that effing thing tonight again.
Yeah, I'm still I have trouble sleeping anyway. I've been an insomniac since I was 17, so I've had 20 years of fighting insomnia, so it's hard enough to go to sleep as it is. And I think, every night I think if I fall asleep and I wake up and this thing is back in the room, what am I going to do? Right. I was able to fight against whatever it had done to put me in a sleep paralysis like state, but what else could I do? Is there anything I could do different? And more or less, I'm just trying to think, is there anything I can do to keep it away? Right. Than rather have to deal with it again once it shows up. So, I
mean, are you the kind of person that, we all hear the podcasts and of course I hazard to say watch the shows, but just in general, things that you can do even from watching those shows, not the over the top stuff, but more like just saying out loud, like, you're not welcome here. This is not cool. This is my space. Or, maybe taking another step and like, some people believe in saging or just, I don't know where you stand with stuff like that, but has it gotten to the point where you're like, well, gosh, maybe I kind of want to try, or you just want to see if it'll happen again?
If it shows up again, I think I'll have to start maybe getting some advice from somebody who's a little bit more adept at dealing with these sorts of things than I am.
Which, by the way, I'll just say right now, and let me just, before I forget, if that does happen again and you need any help, just get a hold of me. It doesn't have to be for on air or anything, but I do know people, and I'm sure you've heard some of the other shows where people have had things in their home. I'm always here to help with anything that might be going on.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
I do know, like, not me, but I know people that are much better at this kind of stuff than me and have been doing it, some of them like 25, 30 years, and they know their shit, so yeah. Anytime.
Exactly. And I've had creepy stuff in the house before. I actually had to get rid of something once before, and I lost the person's contact information because it was like 15 years ago. But this is not the first thing that's this is not the first thing that. Yes, I've been in this house. I've lived in this house. I'm 37 now. I've lived in this house since I was 20.
So what have you had to get rid of before?
We had some sort of negative spirit in the house at one point. I don't know how it got in. Probably because being someone who is a big history buff, I collect at least I used to. I collect a lot of historical items, especially from roughly the turn of the 20th century up through the end of World War II. My main study was the history of science and technology, and specifically military technology, which means I had a small collection of vintage, one-off, weird military weapons and stuff upstairs, and that may be where it came in, but that's up for debate. But at the time, I was in grad school. I was married at the time, and we also had 2 roommates that were a couple living with us. And weird things just started happening, and people started to feel just uncomfortable in the house all the time. It always felt like if you turned around, there would be someone right on your back, just crowding your space all the time. And we had in the living room, we always just used to eat in there because it's communal space. The dining room has always been a makeshift office more than anything. And we were sitting in there one night, me and one of the roommates, and out of the entry room, which is off to the side, the foyer, there's a coat rack in there, and there was a couple coat hangers. A coat hanger came flying all the way from the other room into the living room and crashed against the wall. Like someone had just chucked it hard. Another time I remember being in the living room waiting for something to finish in the microwave in the kitchen. And I heard the 3 beeps telling me the microwave's done. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go get it in a second, let it cool off for a minute. And then I hear someone pushing the buttons on the microwave again. Beep, 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 beep. And then you can hear, when you turn on the microwave, it winds up, you can hear it engage. And I go in there, and someone had turned it back on with maximum time. It was just 9999 go, basically. Wow. And I'm like, well, that's certainly weird. Another time we watched a plate move about 8.5 inches across the table on its own. We were sitting on 2 separate sides. No one was near it. And it moved slowly and kind of half rotated, a half revolution at the same time in front of us.
Who saw that incident?
It was actually the same person all 3 times. One of my roommates.
That's slightly interesting.
Yeah. And then there was also nightmares that were kind of shared nightmares at the same time between a couple different people. And the nightmare was basically that something was coming after you to hang you with a rope.
That's nice.
Yes. So
lighthearted.
So lighthearted. So we eventually got sick of it. I reached out to a friend of my father's who was a docent at a fairly famous house out in California. I won't name names right now on air because I don't know if he would appreciate that.
Right.
But anyway, a long time ago, they had trouble at that house. They were trying to catalog it. I don't know if it was for insurance purposes or whatever. And no matter what they did, every time they'd go in to take pictures, the pictures would come out just destroyed, just like totally blown out, whited out, blurry. No matter what you did, different cameras, different film. And somehow he got in touch with this kind of new wavy mystic lady, and she said, well, it's the wife of the person who lived there. She doesn't like people taking pictures of her stuff without permission. So just go in there, ask permission, and they'll turn out. Well, he followed her advice, and all of a sudden it turned out. So he put some credence in her abilities, and he had her get a hold of me, and she did some magic juju on her end, told me to, do a little saging and light some white candles and say a certain thing she had me write down, and it did actually go away. There's been other stuff in the house since I've owned it that are still here that's not negative. It occasionally plays little pranks on people, but it's not negative, and it did not go away with that, which is kind of weird because that system was to get rid of negative energy, and yet what we call the gray lady still is roaming around my house a little bit.
The gray lady. So
the gray lady.
Obviously, then someone has seen her. Have you seen her?
I have seen her legs. That's the only thing I've seen her, but other people have seen her, and that's what they describe her as. This house was built in 1922. I don't believe I haven't really looked in it, and I should because I'm a history guy, but I'm not a local history guy. I know it's not the first house that was built on this lot. So I don't know if this comes from this house or the house that was there before. The houses in my block were originally built in the 1880s. This one was built in the 1920s. So it either burned down or they tore it down and built a nicer one or something. But
right. So the
anyway,
gray lady, you've seen her legs.
I have seen her legs, and it was not that long ago. For years, I didn't see her. You could kind of feel her around. You would hear someone walking upstairs and going. For some reason, she loves to pace upstairs in the upstairs hallway, and you will hear the bathroom door is. Being an older house, most of the doors in the house are still solid, heavy wood doors. The bathroom door, whoever had the house before me put one of those cheap hollow core ones in, and so it has kind of a distinct noise when it closes. It's a hollow ka-thunk. And you'll hear someone walk upstairs, and you'll hear the bathroom door close. Ka-thunk. Not slam, just slowly, like someone's just closing it. Very slow and deliberate. And I had the roommates up there one night, and one of them had to go to the bathroom at 2, 3, 4 in the morning. Came out of their room, looked right to go down to the bathroom, which is on the second floor, and she was standing there at the end of the hallway. And she just looked at him, kind of tilted her head, turned, and walked into the bathroom. And he said, I went back, and I just stayed there till the daylight started to creep out. And then I held it, and then I went to the bathroom.
I don't blame him. I'm just going to say, I think he probably said, screw going to the bathroom right now. So she tilted her head at him. Because,
kind of like, what are you doing up?
Oh, my. See, because one of my questions I jotted down was, did you think it was residual or an intelligent haunting? And obviously you just answered that question because she interacted with him.
I do think it is intelligent because at the same time, I'm allergic to cats. And when I was in grad school, I just didn't have the time to deal with the dog. So I had a pet bunny rabbit. And we had the pet bunny rabbit in the dining room with the little home office where everyone kind of did work, and that was her little cage in there. She was just a mini little dwarf bunny, and more than once one of the roommates would come in and she would be standing there just kind of looking at the bunny, not messing with it or anything. The bunny didn't die unexpectedly or anything, just kind of like, oh, that's cute. Now, when I saw her, it was probably about 6 months ago for the first time I ever actually saw her. I came home and I had the feeling someone was standing behind me again, and I kind of looked down to the left, and I seen a pair of legs standing behind me, and by the time I kind of went, oh shit, and turned around, gone.
Was she, is she, what does it look like? Is she kind of see-through? Is she wearing shoes? Does she have pants on? Like, what is she? She's wearing, it's like what you'd kind of expect a middle-class Midwestern woman of the 1920s to have as a dress, kind of similar to a sundress. Okay.
But she's all just washed out in grayscale. But she is solid. most of the time. But when everyone's seen her, they describe her solid. And that's what I saw, a solid pair of kind of grayscale dress and feet sticking out.
What did your roommate describe her as? Because he got a really good look at her on the way to the bathroom.
He just, well, it was dark, but he said she looks like she's middle-aged brunette, long hair. And yeah, so I mean, she doesn't really mess with you. It's just more like if you run into her, she startles you because she's not supposed to be there, but she is. No negative interactions or anything like that, other than just you see her when you really wish you wouldn't have.
I don't know. I think if I saw a lady in my hallway, and then especially the head tilt thing is cool, but also pretty damn freaky. That would kind of freak me out probably pretty bad. Like, oh shit, I'm going back to the bedroom. Like, but compared to your gremlin, goblin, machine elf thing,
that puts it in a whole different league. Yeah. And like I said, I think she plays some tricks on me every once in a while, or on us. I think I just get the feeling she's bored. Yeah, I do notice stuff is moved. And when you live by yourself, you especially know when stuff is moved, and there's no one else to blame it on. I've had two interesting things happen in the past. One was about a year and a half ago, and one was about 5 years ago. And I want everyone to understand, I've lived here for almost 2 decades, so this is pretty well spaced apart stuff. It's not like she's constantly doing stuff. Yeah. But I had some friends over, and I think it was around my birthday. We were just having a couple of drinks and watching TV, typical stuff. And we were going back and forth to the kitchen, to get a refill. And in about 40 minutes between us making trips, the only way I can describe this is if you took and mopped your floor with cooking oil. I have a linoleum floor, and the whole floor was covered in a very thin layer of what looked like, I don't know, it was like olive oil, cooking oil, something like. And at that time, I didn't have any. I was out. He walked in. My friend walked in. He's like, Bob, something's leaking in your kitchen. And we could not find the source of it. It wasn't in a puddle somewhere and kind of spreading out. It literally looked like someone just painted my floor with oil.
Did it smell like anything?
It was very neutral smell, like a light cooking oil would be. It was slippery like oil, and it was oil because I immediately cleaned it up. I got out the mop and the bucket and the Murphy's oil soap and cleaned it up. But we never figured out where it came from, and there was no cooking oil in the house.
What in the world was that?
Yeah, that was one of those times. And another time, again in the kitchen. It seems to be the kitchen and the upstairs are really the hot spots for her. I was doing dishes. My dishwasher had broke, so I had to do them by hand, which I hate. And I was sitting there doing dishes, and all of a sudden I just hear a large slapping noise on the floor behind me. I go, what the hell? And I turn around, and it's someone took, you take a coin in your hand and slap it on a table. Mm-hmm. Someone had slapped a quarter on the floor behind me.
And the quarter was sitting there on the floor.
It was sitting there, and it didn't drop and do the thing that a coin usually does, roll around a little bit, or it was like someone literally just palm slapped it on the floor behind me, like, "Hey,
wow,
whack!" Yeah. So that's kind of.
Did you kind of like look back, like, should I pick that up? Should I leave it? Like,
well, I'm a curious guy. So the first thing I did is, because I'm kind of used to weird stuff at this point in this house like that, I picked it up and I look at the year and I'm like, does this mean anything to me? Right. Like, is someone trying to send me a message is the first thing I'm thinking of.
Pick it up like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You're like, this means something.
So
it had no validity as far as that goes to you. At least not so far.
It was before I was born, so if it meant something, it was for some time before I came on this earth. So
she's giving you a hint as to when she died, or when she was born, or when the tragedy happened, or right? That's what everyone out there is thinking. They're like, it does mean something.
And I probably should go on like a site like diedinhouse.com and see who's died in this house, but I just haven't.
I've done that once, just out of sheer curiosity. Best $12 I ever spent. I mean, it didn't come up with anything, but I still think it's good to good to know, I guess, either way. I don't know how accurate that stuff is. I mean, even the Ancestry, the 3 or 4 out now, they're under some controversy at all points. I think everything does, but I would think that the Dyden house might have decent records of stuff. I mean, realtors are supposed to divulge if any, a murder or something like that has gone on in a house that you're about to buy. So I don't know.
Yeah, and they didn't do that when I bought this place. So as far as I know, it somewhat remains a mystery what she's up to. But yeah, like I said, I don't get the negative feeling off of her. It's just she's just kind of here, and I guess we've gotten used to each other at this point.
Isn't that interesting though? Because don't you wonder how the other side works as far as wherever she comes from and wherever she really is right now? It's hard to there's another conjecture, but wherever she is, and then wherever this goblin a-hole is, like, do they know of each other? Do they realize they're sometimes in the same space at the same time? Thankfully only once for the machine elf, but like, would they have an epic battle and she's like, no, you're a nasty little a-hole, you need to go, like, this is my space?
It does make you wonder just at how much interaction the different weird spooky things we have in this world have with each other.
Right.
I don't know, I've as someone that kind of has studied this in my earlier life in college and whatnot, the history of science and religion was part of my studies, the history of science and technology. I kind of look at my theory on the whole, if you've got ghosts and goblins and stuff, is I've kind of gravitated to the idea that, maybe this is small little bits of evidence we live in the holographic universe.
Right. That
some physicists are talking about. And this is just, I kind of joke that when weird stuff like this happens, are my programmers screwing with me? It's right. it's like an angry teenager playing The Sims and just seeing how miserable you can make the character. I mean, that's kind of what I feel like when you have the high strangeness things you hear about. I'm like, that's the only thing in my brain, which is somewhat science oriented, I can think of, is this is maybe the holographic universe being weird to us.
Well, and doesn't Elon Musk, like, honest to God, believe that? I think he does.
I think like he does.
A Matrix type situation, almost.
And if I believe Stephen Hawking, one of the last papers he wrote kind of was trying to prove that it's possible that we are living in the holographic universe.
Can you imagine? It would explain a lot, though, wouldn't it? I mean,
it really would.
Especially the one-off stuff. I mean, I've had the one-off experience, so
yeah,
it would explain all of it.
I found that episode and listened to it because I it's so weird. I've known about you, but I didn't at the same time, because you've come across my radar because I consume various podcasts and whatnot, and I found you via. I've seen you on the Trail of Bigfoot. Mm-hmm. And then somehow or another, I came across Ryan Sprague's podcast, and you were on one of his back episodes, I believe. And then I was like, that voice sounds familiar. So then I found your podcast. So because I really didn't consume podcasts until a couple years ago, really.
Right.
So
it's funny though, once you get into it, then it's like, oh, I cannot get enough of these podcasts. That's certainly how I was.
It's true. I have about 4 or 5 that. There's not a whole lot where I am. I live in a small town of 12,000 people in the middle of Iowa. So, when it's nice out, I like to go hiking. And so that's what I listen to when I go hiking is podcasts. And it's usually the weirder, the better. So,
but this does have more to it, which you included in your email, which I'm assuming you're okay to talk about, right? The thing that happened.
Yeah.
You said 6 months prior to the machine. We're talking about the machine elf now, guys. We're back to that. 6 months prior, but within a week's time, is the time frame that we're looking at here. So let's zip back to 6 months ago and talk about what you saw then. And now people are probably going to go, well, now hold on a minute, maybe stuff is tied in, but.
Or either that, or they're going to think I'm genuinely fracking nuts. One of the two. But
not this crowd.
I hope so. Yeah, 6 months. And I can remember it being just about 6 months because, ironically, it was on Friday the 13th, September 13th, 2019. And I was just coming back from one of the walks around town, and it was right at dusk, right as it was changing over to just almost night, right at the very end of dusk. So with a little bit of light left in the sky, not a whole lot. And I look up, and coming from behind me and heading, it'd be north by northeast, is a light. And the only way I can describe this light is whitish blue or bluish white, mostly white with a little blue tinge to it. And it had a tail behind it, like what I either describe as like when you see a car going down the street with flying a flag very slowly, how it waves in the breeze, or like a tadpole. And this tail was slightly translucent. And it didn't have a long trail. The trail didn't stick with it like you would think with a shooting star or a comet when you see it in the sky. It wasn't this long tail. And it just slowly moved about 20 to 30 miles an hour off in that direction until I lost it behind some trees. Didn't make a sound, but it definitely felt like it was low in altitude. I would say, and I'm terrible at judging distance, so take this with a grain of salt. Under 500 feet, but above 100, somewhere in there. And probably the size I would gauge of anywhere from like those little smart cars up to like a VW Bug. Somewhere in there in size the object was. And it just slowly drifted off with this weird tail kind of waggling in the breeze, this translucent tail, until I lost it behind the trees. And for the longest time, I thought about actually reporting it, and I just never did. Because once again, I'm like, do I really want to come off as the kooky guy that saw what you describe as a bluish-white tadpole flying through the sky? No, I didn't want to do that. But at the same time, I've been thinking about that over and over again, and I have to wonder, being 6 months almost to, within a week, 6 months, I was thinking about it recently when this happened. I'm like, I don't know if my first thought when I sat down and tried to clear my head is like, is something trying to tell me to just not do that? I don't know. Right. I mean, because I've been thinking about it. It's almost 6 months to the day. I was kind of actually Googling about a week before the Machine Elf incident on who do I report it to MUFON or, is CUFO still a thing? And if they are, are they taking reports, thing like that? And I was like, I don't know. So yeah, that may tie in with it. May not. I don't know.
Right. That's the tough thing about it, right? It could
but then
all
we
be
come
connected
back to it,
or none of it could be.
Yeah. So then we come back, it's like, was it just just because it's light in the sky, it doesn't mean it's an alien, right. There are, it could be something else. At first, my first thought was, did I see ball lightning? Because you hear it kind of described that way, but at the same time, there's clear skies, if I remember right, or just partly cloudy skies. There was no inclement weather that should be causing any kind of ball lightning or anything like that. So I don't know. It's thrown a wrench in kind of how I'm mentally processing everything, lately. So
the tail is also of interest because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you were kind of getting at the fact that it moved in a way that it almost made the thing seem biological. Is that like a stretch or?
No, I wouldn't say it was biological. That was the movement it had, but it felt to me more like that was just the way it was interacting with the air aerodynamically, like a flag does. You push it straight forward, but it still wiggles, And so in my brain, I was like, is that some sort of plasma? And that would maybe do that if it was going through the air. I don't know. It's not a nuts and bolts thing, and it's not just a plain point of light in the sky dancing around. It's somewhat up close enough to see this unusual feature.
But the size of a smart car, I mean, that's not a little tiny thing. I mean, what I saw in the woods, that orb, whatever you want to call it, spook light, ghost light, we thought it was a headlamp on. That's how small it was. But yours is much bigger than that.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of looked like, it was definitely large. I mean, you got the sense that it was a large thing a couple 100 feet up in the air. And not because if it was a drone, it would have to be much smaller and it'd be close enough you would hear it. that hum. There was no hum at all. No hum at all, just silently. And it really wasn't a windy day or anything, so you would have really been able to hear it.
And sorry, I know I'm the same as you. I hate judging distance, but can you guess how far it was from you at the closest point?
I would say,
could you throw something at it? Like it was that close?
No.
Okay.
I would say maximum, like I said, about 5, because it came up from behind me and almost over my left shoulder.
Mm.
Okay, so it was almost directly over me at one point, and I would say 200 to 500 feet is where I'd safely put it there. And that's kind of, when you're down low, that's a big stretch, but without anything to judge in the distance, it was definitely not high up in the atmosphere. Let's put it that way. And it was definitely taller than the oak and maple trees because it was going over them and I was losing them. So, then these are all old growth trees in my neighborhood. So they're tall as they're going to get. And it felt like it was a decent amount over that. So I'd put minimum 200 feet. So.
Are you I know that there's not a lot of people where you live. Are you close to other neighbors?
Oh, yes. Yeah. This is kind of a small bedroom town next to a university town.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, my town's about, and I'm on the northern end of it, but it's about 4 miles by about 4 miles. It's kind of spread out, and there's about 12,000 people here. No one else saw anything. Unfortunately,
have you gone online to see if anybody reported anything, since you were considering actually doing the same thing?
I hadn't gotten that far yet. So, yeah, I can't tell you if it did or not. And I may after all this, because obviously I'm throwing it out in the public sphere now. So I may do it anyway and see if anything bounces back.
Well, yeah, and once this airs, people will, hopefully get in contact with me and go, hey, or even if it's not in Iowa, even just something that looks similar would be of interest, right? I mean, of course. And
if anyone's listening from any of the reporting agencies and they want to get a hold of me, you're more than welcome to toss them my email address.
Awesome.
I mean,
I will certainly do that. And of course, on top of the UFO, the machine elf. I mean, please, if anybody has any input on that, if you've come across, if you have a story or if you've come across anything similar to that, especially the way that it was acting and interacting with Robert, please get in contact with me. And again, I will forward that to you, Robert, of course. Are you worried at all are you nervous to be talking about this stuff?
At first, leading up to this, I was, but no, not really. Not really now. So, I mean, I've kind of gone back and forth. You caught me on a day where I was like, I really don't give a shit anymore. People are seeing stuff. Whether they like to admit it or not, people are seeing weird stuff, and it seems to be at least happening either more often or people are finally talking about it more often. And so there's legitimate phenomena happening, and people need to get it out there, because whether you think it's aliens, it's ghosts, it's nature spirits or whatever, something is happening. People are seeing something, and I think as the general public kind of needs to acknowledge weird things do happen and people are seeing them and they aren't crazy. So,
absolutely. Well said.
It's just like the stigma with mental health. For years it was just swept under the rug. No one liked to talk about it. Well, it's time to lift the rug and see what's been swept underneath for so long.
Like, Robert, don't you feel like, I mean, numbers are, who knows really, but I swear, I would bet anywhere between, I don't know, let's throw out 90% of, just take the U.S. We won't even talk about the whole world, but I swear, it seems like if everybody reported or admitted they had even just one weird shit thing happen, 90+%, I swear, if they were honest with themselves and were okay to come out and say, yep, I've seen a ghost, or yep, I saw an alien at the foot of my bed one night, or whatever the hell it was, the numbers have got to be staggering, and I certainly do wish that more people would be okay to talk about it like you are.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying feel free to use my name, because someone has to start the ball rolling, and some people are, and I'm just throwing in my lot with them on this. So I do have one other interesting tale.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, we can use it on this one, or if you ever wanted me to come back on, because it's It's not related to my house. It's not related to the machine elf, but it's something else that happened in a car once, and everyone in the car, including me, did see it.
Oh, no. Go right ahead if you want to.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know. I mean, it's kind of an off-tangent one, but this would have been back around 2006 or 7. I'm trying to remember when I had that car. All the people who lived in this house at the time went up. We were all roughly from the same area, which is a town about 50 miles north originally. We all came down here to go to college and various things because the big university's down here, Iowa State University. So we went up to everyone went up to visit their parents, friends, whatever. And we were coming back and we were taking the back roads, and it was kind of one of those, it wasn't stormy, but it was spitting rain, misty, dreary kind of days. And coming in, there's about 5 different ways to come from that town to this town. And we took one of the back roads, and it takes us down into the river valley, the Des Moines River Valley. And there's a huge bridge that goes across at a certain point. And when we were going across the bridge, someone jumped out in front of the car, and we thought we ran someone over. And they just sucked under the car. And everyone collectively, without saying, "Oh my God, did you see that?" Everyone just went, where you take that quick inhale. It's like, "Oh my God," and everyone just looked at each other, and we slammed on the brakes, and we stopped the car, and we looked back, and there was no one in the road. And to this day, I can't explain that, but we all swore we hit somebody. We all freaked out that someone had just stepped out in the road at the very end of this bridge, and no one was there. He didn't come through the car. It just sucked under. And it wasn't like a shadow person. It wasn't just a silhouette. It was like a man in a rain slicker. And the only thing I think was, did someone get hit and killed on that part of the road in the past or something? But that was another weird time. And there were 4 people in the car. There was 5 people in the car. 4 of us saw it. The other one was sleeping when it happened. And when we all went and slammed on the brakes, he jerked awake. And what happened? What happened? But yeah, we looked back. There was no one in the road. And that was 4 people. I mean, that one's hard to dispute or explain away because you all react to it at the same time. You all saw it at the same time, minus Sleeping Beauty.
Minus Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah.
Who really wish it, or maybe they don't wish they would have seen that. But isn't that interesting? It's almost like one of those urban legend type things that come to life. And you said he was in a rain slicker and it was raining. Yeah. So maybe he only does that. He only replays, maybe he did get hit there and that's how he died. And then he only replays that on rainy days or nights or whatever. Wow, that is a cool story.
It's one of those that is, it is somewhat like an urban legend, except for it's not as spooky. There's no hook hand man or anything. It's just, he just stepped out full frontal faced us. And just when we got to him, he just went under, like he just sucked under the car. He went from being solid to just going under it.
Wow. Did you feel a bump or a thud or nothing?
No noise, no thud. That's why we were all like, what the hell just happened to us? Yeah, because if I would have felt a thud, I would have really been freaking out.
Right. Did he have a face of shock before he went under the car? Did you see that?
You couldn't see the face. The slicker was the hood of the slicker was kind of pulled tight around his head. You could just see like a little bit of jaw definition. Like you could tell, like it was from the size of it, it was a man. Yeah. It wasn't a woman. It was a very tall woman, but it was more like built like a linebacker kind of, very stoutly built, tall individual, and he just sucked under the car.
Do you know the name of that bridge?
I do not know the name of the bridge. County road. I'm trying to remember the name of the county road. Every county road around here starts with a letter and then a number. I'd be more than welcome to, go out and take a picture of it sometime and email it to you. But
that'd be cool.
it's only don't go out of your way. It's 3 miles from my house. Tops.
Oh, that's cool.
It's literally the last hill you go down. You go across the river, and then it's about 3 miles back up to up the hill, and then you just head kind of be east, and you're in my town. So
if you get a chance, it'd just be, and even if you don't feel like taking a picture, that's fine. But it'd be kind of cool just to look into that bridge and see if we can find any stories or other sightings of that gentleman in the rain slicker.
It's down near our city's sewage treatment plant. Is right next to the river down there. So
and obviously the bridge is still up. It's
still up. It's still there. Yep.
Maybe I could even just find it on Google Earth if I just look up the sewage treatment plant. That is such a cool story. I mean,
yeah,
it's not nice to think even for a moment that you have run anyone over, of course. But that is a damn cool story. It's a lot nicer than that a-hole machine elf in your room.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it was trying to kill me.
Yeah, that's nice, huh?
Unlike with the elf. Yeah, because I did get a serious sense of malice.
Yeah.
Like that kind of, you can kind of, sometimes when you experience something paranormal, you can kind of get a vibe off of it. And not to sound too new agey, but like the Gray Lady, I don't feel intimidated by her. She just pops up and does some funny stuff every once in a while. I'm like, oh, there she goes. The rain slicker dude was a little bit spooky, that's for sure. But the machine elf, yeah, I mean, you almost got like curiosity and malice is kind of vibe I got off of it, and that could just be because of the appearance of the thing. I mean, it kind of looks like a weird hobgoblin thing, but very tall.
Yeah, maybe he just wanted to play patty cake with you in the middle of the night, and he just happens to look like a hideous demon from hell. So that's how you took his.
Yeah, we shouldn't judge books by their cover, apparently, right?
Right. Yeah, Robert, come on now. Let's just all hold hands with the hobgoblin. No.
And the thing I'm worried, I guess the thing I'm worried about with the whole thing is, what's his name? The Mothman Prophecies author,
John Keel.
John Keel, when you notice it starts to notice you back, sort of thing. Yeah. And that's the thing that I worry about. The more you see stuff, it's like, is this what's happening? Right. It's like, part of me is very curious. I don't know if it's being in academia did it to me or whatever, but you're always, you like to study stuff, but the idea that it notices that you're doing it and then starts to mess with you is a little odd, and I've watched the Hellier series and kind of seen what the Newkirks are going through, and I'm like, do I want to do that? I don't think I want to do that.
Well, they also, say that they have a bunch of haunted stuff in their home, which you don't.
This is true.
You don't go out and go, here's a haunted, relic from the Salem witch trial, whatever the hell, and bring it into your house. So at least there's that with you.
It's true. It's although I do have a room full of war stuff,
older stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and some of those show evidence of maybe not being in the best circumstances when the person that was holding them let go of them, so to speak.
Gotcha. I mean, as far as the machine elf being tied to something like that, I mean, I don't know. I mean, anything's a jump, but that just seems like a really big jump to even. That just seems like something totally different.
Yeah, I believe that has nothing to do with the stuff I have upstairs in my collection room. Now, the first thing I told you about the negative entity that was kind of always up in our space and moving stuff around, that may be, because, war is hell and who knows what gets attached to things during hellish times. But yeah, that's the only thing I could think of is I saw this weird light in the sky, and I wouldn't even call it necessarily a UFO. Other than the fact it is literally an unidentified flying object of some sort, but I didn't get the feeling. I didn't get the feeling from looking at that. Oh, look, E.T.
Like a craft piloted by something.
Yeah, it was. I'm like, is this some sort of weird nature light or something? It's truly unidentified, unexplained. So, I mean, I don't think all the things that people are seeing in the sky are piloted by little green men or secret black projects by the government. I think there's some other weird stuff possibly going out around.
Yeah, except you need to tell that weird shit to stay out of your bedroom at night. That part's not cool. And I say it every damn time there's somebody that comes on and says there's something going on in my house. I'm like, that's not cool. It's not right. They should have their boundaries.
Yeah. Well, I forgot. There's one other story if you want it.
Heck yeah.
Okay. And this is another weird thing that happened in my bedroom. And this is, I think, the Gray Lady. This is the only time I think she's ever actually physically interacted with me, like me being touched. At the time I was married, and my ex worked at a local bakery doing donuts in the morning. So she would go to work at like 2 or 3 in the morning, come back at like 9 when the donuts were all done and whatnot. Anyway, this was about 4 or 5 in the morning. And I'm sleeping in bed, and all of a sudden I feel someone sit on the edge of the bed. I felt the bed go down, like someone just sat next to me. Now I'm a stomach sleeper, so my face is down in a pillow, so I'm not looking. And I feel 3 or 4 just light taps on my foot, like, hey, kind of like those. And I go, now I'm awake, and I'm going, what do you want? Because I assume it's her. And no answer, and then 3 or 4 more little taps, like, hey. Again, I'm like, what do you want? I'm trying to sleep. And then again, nothing. 3 or 4 more little taps. And I got a little pissy at that point. And I yelled, what the F do you want?
Right.
And I just felt a real brisk slap on my leg. Like almost it was like someone was saying, don't curse, slap. And it jolted awake, and room's dark, door's locked, and that one kept me up for a couple nights too.
Yeah, that one was slightly creepy and invasive of her. What if that wasn't her though?
Well, I don't know. But it didn't. Once again, it didn't feel malicious. It was like I took it as someone's trying to get your attention. And
she didn't seem to like you cursing, so that would make more sense that it was the gray lady.
I figure if somebody was living in this house and died in the house in the 20s or something like that, or the teens or whatever, whether it was this house or the house that was here before, they don't like you dropping loud F-bombs, maybe. Maybe they were raised proper.
Robert, smack! So
yes.
She smacked you on your calf then because you were still face down?
Yeah. And it was enough to sting. It was enough to it stung a little, and it was red. It was red for 20-30 minutes there, and then it kind of calmed down. But yeah, that only happened once. That's enough. Yeah, she did.
Well, she
I'm
sure
a
as
real
hell
pasty
is not.
guy, so.
You're pasty. Well, you live in Iowa. I mean, come on, cut yourself a little slack, all right?
The only tan I have is a farmer tan. So wherever a T-shirt doesn't cover is tan. I mean wherever a T-shirt it doesn't cover his tan.
Yeah,
so.
just white as a sheet. That's all right. You're allowed. No, but I mean, if it's there for 20-30 minutes, she slapped the hell out of you, basically.
It stung.
You hope that it was her. What if that was a little machine elf or something?
I would assume I would have saw it then. I don't know, but it was so long ago and I didn't get the vibe. It startled me the fact that I got up and no one was home, because I was expecting to turn around and she was sitting on the bed just messing with me, because that's the way she was.
And how long ago was this?
This would have been 2006, 2007, right around there. Because I had just started grad school. Yeah. And it was like, we were on winter break at the time. I remember that because I got up because I'm like, I don't have to go to work or school. So I just got up and I watched the entire, from beginning to end, of Das Boot. The whole thing.
That's
because
how
I couldn't go back
to
sleep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
so.
I mean, have you ever thought about leaving, I don't know if you'd want to, but leaving a recorder going or camera going or something like that?
I have, but at the same time, I come back to things like sometimes when you give them too much attention, it ramps up. And then since I have to live here, it's a little different than doing it in someone else's house where you tell them, hey, are you willing to deal with this if it gets, if you're throwing gasoline on a fire? Yeah. And I'm willing to put up with the weird thing that was 14 years ago, 13, 14 years ago, and it hasn't happened since. I'm like, I'm going to let that one go.
You don't really want a recorder to come back or your phone app to come back and go, I'll be back tomorrow, Robert. Sleep.
Exactly.
Like something just totally personal and creepy would be.
Yeah,
really
when the activity's at like as far as how many times it occurs, is that like a 2 or a 3? It's different than if it's like cranked up to like a 9 or a 10, and then you're like, okay, I got to figure out what this thing is because now I got to get rid of it.
All of a sudden, you're like, I'm going to be Catholic, and I'm going to call the Catholic diocese, and we're going to take care of this.
I grew up Catholic. I'm not really Catholic. I did 13 years of Catholic school, but
you can handle this stuff yourself. Then you don't need to call nobody. See?
I've seen The Exorcist 3 times. I know what I'm doing.
Right? We all know.
I took
We got
notes.
this.
I took notes.
Oh, a great, terrifying movie. God.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for getting in contact with me.
Well, you're welcome.
I mean,
thank you for having me on.
that once I started to, I mean, I saw the subject line, which now I can tell everyone was in fact Machine Elf / Goblin. You know, because you're like, I don't quite know what the hell to call this thing. And then when I read the details, I'm like, holy smokes! Like, no big old bag, more bags of nope coming into the email. But if you guys have any input on any of the stuff that Robert has talked about on this episode, email me, Shannon at intothefrayradio.com, or you can go to intothefrayradio.com and click the contact button that does get sent directly to that very same email address, coincidentally. So keep in contact with me. I am slightly wondering, you know, not that I wanted to. I say this also on a lot of the shows where I have people have stuff in their home going on. I don't want it to, but if something weird happens or whatever, you know, I would like to hear about it, and we'll keep in contact. And like I said, in the event that anything does ramp up, which I don't think that it will, we do know some folks. Let's just say that. So if anything ever happened again, we can banish that little elf bastard right back to wherever the hell he's from.
That would be lovely.
That would be great,
and,
right?
If you ever have a different show or you want to have me back for anything, I'm more than willing to. I was worried about this at first, but yeah, it was utterly delightful.
Well,
really.
Thank you. I try to make it as you know, they say a pint on the pain scale. I'm like, I try to make it a 1, you know, not a 10. So I try not to grill anybody too bad and try to make it as fun as it can be when you're talking about total a-holes invading your bedroom at night, you know.
When it's this off the wall, you know, it's not just the, you know, things are knocking and scraping at the walls. It's weird hobgoblin like things.
But these kind of stories are my favorites. Like, not because it's terrorizing you in your bedroom or in your home, but because it's like a one-off thing. You know, just like mine. Mine's a one-off. I've never seen a shadow person again, and it was different because it wasn't in my house. But the one-off stuff is like all-time favorite. It is when somebody comes on. You know, they're not like, it's okay if it's a researcher or author, of course. A lot of those people have their own stories. But when it's just a normal folk like you or me, and they're like, look, I have some weird shit, and let's talk about this. That's my favorite thing ever. So thank you so much for being willing to talk to me about it and for writing me in the first place.
Yeah, well, like I said, I think the more people that start to talk about this, the more we'll get to understand it eventually.
Absolutely.
So, you know, we've got to just peel back that stigma about talking about when weird stuff happens. So
that's exactly right. But we'll be in touch.
Okay.
And I mean, if you get out to that bridge area, that'd be pretty neat to find out.
I will actually,
that'd be pretty cool.
I will actually do that in the next few days here. It's supposed to be kind of raining and storming here for the next few days, but the next nice day we have, I've got to change the oil in my motorcycle anyway, so I'll just take it for a little ride out to the bridge and take a picture and email it to you. So
that would be very cool.
It's truly no big deal. So
thanks, Robert. Well, I hope you're doing okay out there during these nutty times, and I thank you again for coming on.
Well, it's a bit of a struggle because I was just starting to do my own thing when this all hit. So
of course, right?
Oh, I'm the master of bad timing. You know.
Well, don't be too hard on yourself, because
well, I won't.
My goodness. I mean, it's
uncertain times.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. And then who would have thought toilet paper would be the thing that they're stabbing each other over. And that actually something happened a couple of weeks ago. People getting stabbed over effing toilet paper. You're like, oh, well, boy.
Yeah. We're in. It feels like we're in some weird novel, dystopian novel that's just kicking off, doesn't it?
And every day it's just it's like, boy, that escalated quickly. You know, doing the Ron Burgundy meme. Boy, that escalated quickly. Like, no shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're all in a glass case of emotion right now.
I love Will Ferrell so much. He's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a bitch slap of truth right there. That was from Land of the Lost, but still, yeah, I go around quoting a lot of Will Ferrell and Dumb and Dumber lines and stuff. So that's how I roll.
Well, I do that too. I live my life one movie quote at a time.
Boom, mic drop on that.
So.
Well, thanks again, Robert. I know we'll be in touch, and I know I'll get correspondence, but I'll probably be hearing from you before this airs next week anyway about the bridge. Maybe we can dig up some stuff together on that. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever happen to find yourself traipsing through central Iowa for anything, if you wanted to check it out, let me know. I'll definitely, take you there. That
would be bad to the bone, except we'd have to go on during a rainy time, because maybe we could actually see that dude.
I am a former hunter, so rain does not scare me. I was raised by mechanics and hunters. So even though I'm kind of a nerd, I got my baptism in fire out in nature many decades ago.
You're like, look at this, sissy wearing a raincoat. Oh, shit, just ran him over. Oopsie. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what you were thinking at first. You're like, oops.
Well, I was like, now I'm going to go to jail. That's what I was thinking. It's like, oh, shit.
Were you driving or were you passenger?
I was driving.
Oh.
I was driving. I had a ghetto fabulous Buick Riviera at the time, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna go to jail because I'm too poor for a good lawyer.
Sucks how that works, doesn't it? Shit.
Yep. So
corner pointed, no good.
Yep, exactly. So, but yeah, it's so weird that everyone else, well, except for the one sleeping, saw it, and yeah.
Well, thank God for that. It's good vindication.
We still talk about it to this day.
I bet.
Because the one roommate still lives in town about 5-6 blocks away. Yeah. So yeah, I tried to actually see if she would actually come on here because she's the one that saw the other weird stuff, but she is way too shy for that.
Oh, so, is she?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Maybe when she hears yours and sees I'm not super scary.
She's got some stories of her own too. So
yeah, maybe she'll change her mind. If not, I understand. It's not the easiest thing to do. Come on, one of these things. So
yeah. No, hers would be good ones to, change the name and put them in a book sometime, kind of a thing.
Well, I'm still looking for stories like that too. So, because I do need stories for just the book and that are not for the show as well. So
I'll see if she's willing to do it, and I can write up some stuff for you or something.
That'd be
Let me know.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Robert.
You're welcome. This was fun, actually.
Good. I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
It's one of those things that this, I do content creation for something else, but it's fun.
Did you want to plug your channel, or do you not want to?
Well, I can do it all you want. It's super small, so I mean I'm only at like 515 subscribers right now, because. I was trying to do some freelance PR stuff before I did this. At one time, I was actually this close to getting a show with the History Channel.
Really?
Way back. I used to write a history blog, and in 2017, a production company did approach me to pitch to the History Channel, and I don't know what happened. It just kind of died on the vine.
Those
for
things
that.
tend
so
to do that. Yeah, don't be hard on yourself.
No. So I was like, it's years ago. I used to do videography back when it was, the big honking JVCs,
right?
With the VCR tapes and stuff like that. In middle school, so I sold my classic car and bought a bunch of videography equipment, and just kind of like you're doing, I just wanted to tell people stories. But it's basically the stories about people that find these cool old vehicles, and just kind of build them with their own two hands and tell the stories behind the build. So, the ones that if the car gets sold once or twice just disappear.
Right.
So
that's cool.
That's kind of what I'm doing.
Well, what's the name of your channel?
The name of the channel is The Average Joe Hot Rod Show. And that's all we do. Of course, right now with all this stuff, I was close to getting a sponsorship, and that all went the way of the dodo for it. But we'll as soon as all this madness stops, I'll be able to start traipsing around all the various car shows and whatnot. And I was actually going to try to go out to Viva Las Vegas, which you're out there, aren't you?
Yep.
Yep. Then you probably know about the festival, but that got canceled. And the big one that's similar to that here got canceled. Well, they moved it to July 4th, which is going to kill the attendance anyway. But even then, we don't know if it's going to go on. So it's there may not be very many episodes. It's kind of what can I do to keep the channel alive without talking to anybody, kind of a thing at this point.
You
So
could do the average Joe haunted hot rod show and just do exactly what I'm doing and just have it more like stories like Christine, like the haunted Cadillac or whatever, like I don't know. I mean,
I come from a racing family, and my dad and my uncle actually used to be professionals at that. And at one point, they held some national records and whatnot. And I went and through my dad's stuff because he is not organized at all, nor does he really take care of stuff. And I actually found the national record recently, so I'm like, maybe I'll do some history pieces or something. I don't know.
But, don't worry. There's always content out there just ready to be produced. But I'm sure you'll come up with something. Or maybe someone will write me and go, he should do this, this. I don't know.
Yeah, if anyone's got anything like that, and they're within 3 or 4 hours driving distance of central Iowa,
you never know who's listening, right? So.
Exactly. So, but I will definitely be in touch, and I'll email that picture of that bridge for you in the next few days.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Robert.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
You betcha. Have a good night out there.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such a college. I've done these things in my profession. I produce a little biography. Buddha says, forget it. That's not true. That's some story. That's all gone. That's all past. I want to see the real you are now. Well, nobody knows who that is. Because we don't know ourselves except through listening to our echoes and consulting our memories. But then there's a real you, and that again leads us back to this question. Who are you? That is the real you. We shall see how they play with this exam by the koans to get you to come out of your shell and find out who you really are. idea in his poem, The Four Quartets, where he says, when you settle down in the train to read your newspaper and so on, you are not the same person who a little while ago left the platform. If you think you are linking your moments up in a chain. And this is what binds you to the wheel of birth and death. But when you know that every moment in which you are is the only moment, this comes into Zen. A master will say to somebody, "Now get up and walk across the room." And he comes back and he says, "Where are your footprints?" They've gone. So where are you? Who are you? When we are asked who we are, we usually give a kind of recitation of a history.